University, Madam Shobha Rani SSV Chairperson, Mr. V.R. Shankara President, Mr. Ian Murthy Secretary of the ICFAI Society, members of the Board of Management of ICFAI Foundation for Higher Education, Professor R.P. Kaushik, Professor Rajashekaran Pillai, Professor Tirupati Rao, Professor Kavil Ramachandran, Chancellors, Vice Chancellors, Directors, Deans, Heads of the Departments, coordinators of different programs, distinguished members of the faculty and support staff, my dear students, media, ladies and gentlemen. On the occasion of the 11th Foundation Day lecture, let me welcome you all. The first Foundation Day lecture was delivered by Padma Vibhushan and world-renowned statistician Dr. C.R. Rao in the year 2011. It was attended by the founder of the university, Mr. N.J. SSV, and also the founder of ICFAI Society, among others, and chaired by Dr. Abid Hussain, the then Chancellor of Chancellor of the university, and also former Indian Ambassador to the United States. Today's speaker is Dr. Venu Srinivasan. He is the chairman of Sundaram Clayton Group, which includes TVS Motor Company, the third largest two-wheeler manufacturer, and also companies that manufacture automotive components in India. He was the president of Confederation of Indian Industries for the year 2009-10. Dr. Srinivasan has an engineering degree from the College of Engineering, Chennai, and a master's in management from Purdue University. In recognition of his contribution to management, he was conferred with Doctor of Management by his alma mater, Purdue University, in 2014. Dr. Srinivasan received Doctor of Science from the University of Warwick in 2004 for his contribution to manufacturing, R&D, technology, and quality excellence. IIT Kharagpur conferred Doctor of Science in the year 2009. Some of the awards conferred on Dr. Srinivasan include Padma Bhushan for the year 2020, the Deming Distinguished Service Award for Dissemination and Promotion by Union of Japanese Scientists and Engineers in November 2019, Lifetime Achievement Award by Federation of Automobile Dealers Association in February 2018, Champion of Champions and Best CEO Award by Business Today in December 2016. Under Dr. Srinivasan's leadership, Sundaram Clayton Limited was awarded the Deming Prize in 1998 by the Union of Japanese Scientists and Engineers and with the Japanese Quality Medal in the year 2002. He was bestowed with the Ishikawa Kano Award in the year 2012 by the Asian Network of Quality, the apex body for quality in Asia, which covers 18 countries, including Japan, China, India, Korea, and Thailand. For his contribution to leadership and management, Dr. Srinivasan was conferred with JRD Tata Corporate Leadership Award by the All India Management Association in the year 2005 and the Jamshedji Tata Lifetime Achievement Award by the Indian Society for Quality in the year 2004. Dr. Srinivasan is also the managing trustee of Srinivasan Services Trust, engaged in transformation and empowerment of thousands of villages in rural India, touching the lives of millions of people, and this trust has received several awards. In short, Dr. Srinivasan is an industrialist of international repute with concern for the poor, and we are privileged to have him as the chief guest today. Most welcome to you, sir. A few words about the Chancellor, Dr. Rangarajan. Dr. Rangarajan, the Chancellor of the University, is a leading economist who has played a key role both as an academic and as a policy maker. He has held several important positions, which include Governor of the Reserve Bank of India and Governor of Combined State of Andhra Pradesh. Dr. C Rangarajan was the Chairman, Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister up until May 2014 in the rank of a Cabinet Minister. After his honors degree from Madras, he obtained his PhD from the world-renowned University of Pennsylvania. He taught at the Wharton School and also at the Graduate School of Business Administration, New York University, and served the International Food Policy Research Institute in Washington, D.C. He also taught at IIMA for over a decade. He was the president of the Indian Economic Association in 1988 and again was honored as the president of the centenary year 2017 of the association. He was also the president of the Indian Economic Society in 1994. He is the only economist in India in the country with these three distinctions. Dr. Rangarajan was recipient of several prestigious awards. Notable among them are the Honorary Fellow of the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad, Alumni Award for Outstanding Leadership by the Wharton India Economic Forum, Finance Man of the Decade by the Bombay Management Association. In recognition of his distinguished service to the country, the President of India honored him with Padma Vibhushan in the year 2002. On June 29, 2020, he received Professor P.C. Mahalnabi's National Award in Official Statistics in Lifetime Achievement category. He is currently Chairman, Madras School of Economics and President, C.R. Rao Advanced Institute for Mathematics, Statistics and Computer Science. A cordial welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
The topic of today's lecture is living in the world of exponential technology and digitalization. I'll just take 1 minute. Technology change is an important factor in the economic development. It contributes to both productivity and overall growth. The technological changes are taking place at an exponential rate in all domains: marketing, finance, e-commerce, fintech, telecom, to name a few, and in all sectors in the economy. These changes impact different sectors in different ways, and one should prepare to live with these changes in technology. In future, people may change jobs partly due to technological changes and several times in their career. So our higher education should focus on creativity and design thinking to prepare the students in their lifetime career changes. To solve this problem, I am happy to inform the distinguished ladies and gentlemen that in this university, we focus on bringing creativity in the courses that are taught. Machine strengths are speed, accuracy, reputation, predictive capabilities, and scalability. Human strengths are creativity, judgments, social and leadership abilities. To be successful, companies need to find ways of balancing these two sets of strengths. The other part of the lecture is on the digital revolution, which also affects all sectors of the economy: agriculture, manufacturing, insurance, healthcare, finance, tourism, governance, and education, especially in increasing productivity. In response to the challenges posed by the pandemic, ever since March 2020, our university has completely switched over to online teaching, assignments, examinations, seminars, conferences, board meetings, academic council meetings, and today this Foundation Day lecture. This is the first time they are holding the Foundation Day lecture online. The effectiveness of teaching online is almost as good as regular face-to-face teaching if one introduces methods of making the teaching interactive. It will be more effective. I also wish to inform the distinguished members that we are very soon going to start an online MBA program to be offered by the university. This technology web conferencing, and video conferencing has helped us transform without losing any time. Without much ado, I now request Dr. Venu Srinivasan to address the audience. The lecture will be for 35 to 40 minutes, followed by a 10-minute Q&A session, which is in the chat box. So I request you to put your questions in the chat box. That will be followed by the presidential address by Professor Rangarajan. The function will conclude with a vote of thanks by the registrar. Now to Dr. Venu Srinivasan.
So please unmute, sir. Srinivasan, sir, please unmute, sir.
Okay, sorry. Thank you very much. Respected Chancellor, Dr. Rangarajan, Chairperson of the ICFAI.
Do anything? Nothing. Right.
Mrs. Shobana Rani Yasasvi, Mr. V.R. Shankara, President of ICFAI, Professor Mahendra Reddy, Vice Chancellor of the University. Thank you very much for inviting me. In fact, I was very humbled that such an eminent person, whom I've always grown up in awe of and with great deal of respect, Dr. Rangarajan, should have invited me to deliver this lecture. Thank you very much, sir. I also would like to start by offering a tribute to this great visionary, Mr. Yashasvi started really a movement which has become, like, as we say traditionally, maybe cliched, but true. It has become a banyan tree, spread all over with multiple campuses, multiple disciplines. I'm indeed, it's very, very honored to be here today to deliver the Foundation Day lecture. I hope all the students and faculty have been safe and well during this pandemic, which has ravaged the world. But today, with number of cases coming down in India, infections per million have really significantly come down. And with the rolling out of the vaccine, there is hope that we will return to normal in the near future. But while the pandemic has affected lives, disrupted lives, it has also caused a revolution, a quiet revolution. It has driven a technological shift. In fact, it has, in my opinion, advanced the digital economy by a decade in India. Let me share some of my thoughts with regard to this process. How did wealth get created? Next slide, please. These are the four broad industrial revolutions. You can argue about what I've used because I myself could argue with it. But broadly, with water and steam came the first industrial revolution. Water and steam produced from milling flour to running textile machinery to running lathes. It created the first engineering revolution in the world. Then came electricity. And with electricity came mass manufacturing of cars, combustion engines, airlines, telephones, cars, radios, electronics. A whole lot of things were made possible by electronics and electricity and electronics. Then came the industrial revolution of automation. In the last 20 years, a robot has become so cheap that most of us are going to produce 70% of repetitive jobs will be by either a robot or a cobot. And finally has come the digital revolution, where the cyberspace, the physical systems, the digital systems, physical and digital coming together is creating. We are on the cusp of it. It has just started creating, but in the next 10 years, we are not going to recognize a whole lot of the world that we are going to have to deal with. And particularly artificial intelligence. If you go into science, into pharmacy, into agriculture, into automotive, into any kind of service, banking, aviation, delivery of pizzas, artificial intelligence is completely redefining the way these things are done. And if you look at wealth creation, which this spawned, the first wave of wealth was just occupation of land by landlords, by nations, and the only way you could create wealth was conquest. And we saw it all over the world. But then came manufacturing. The merchant princes of England, who were actually, they're called merchant princes, but they're industrialists. They're textile manufacturers, castings, Sheffield, the Black Country. And then we went on, and America took over the lead with the advent of electricity and mass manufacturing. It is that entire wealth creation went into people who did mass manufacturing, petrochemicals, all kinds of engineering and industry. And in the last 30 years, we have seen electronics and information technology, the Microsoft, the Google, the Apple, the Amazons take over the world and create wealth. In fact, we are right now on the next wave, which is the digital world. And you're seeing it, the number of billionaires, unicorns at the age of 27 and 30, people are creating wealth that people like me could barely dream of in a lifetime is being created by people in a decade. So there is a huge change in wealth creation. And I want to put this up only to say, not because I want all of you to chase money or wealth, but to understand very clearly that the basis of wealth creation is changing. And if you look at the x-axis, how short these cycles are becoming. What took from 1785 to maybe 1900, almost 1875. And then 1875, it ended by 1900. And then we had 50 years and 40 years. And now it is 30 years. And next one may be 10 years or 15 years. So we're also seeing an acceleration in the acceleration of change. So it's really a very, very new world out there, a very daunting world, but a world full of excitement and opportunities. All of these go through adoption curves. They start off as some novelty, then becomes then hygiene and something expected. So here we see airlines took 64 years from, or the Wright brothers. Then automobiles took 62 years, 1890, and so on. And today, if you look at WeChat, to reach 50 million users, it has taken days. Now we're looking at everything in such short cycles. If you look at computers, then mobile phones, and Facebook, then WeChat, and Pokemon. It is just unbelievable. Years has become days right now. And this is actually very proper statistics. In fact, this is a site that I love very much called Statista. You can find almost statistics on anything in that site. So these changes are not only taking place, but taking place exponentially. And a simple example of exponential is if your stride is 1 meter, 30 linear steps will take you 30 meters from the starting point. But if you do it on exponential basis, 30 steps will take you 26 times around the world. So, and we are seeing that exponential change happening right now in front of our eyes. Let me give you 3 examples to drive home the point. The first is UPI in India. And now it's a benchmark for so many countries. Look at credit cards and debit cards and the unified payment interface. It's amazing how it has gone up exponentially. Whereas credit cards went almost by an arithmetic progression, here it is an exponential progression. The next is look at the Jandan Aadhaar model. It's the most bank accounts opened in 1 week and goes across the Suraksha Yojana to the Jeevan Jyoti Yojana to the Pension Yojana. It has caused a huge revolution in the villages of India. And now comes AI. And with artificial intelligence, if you look at human performance versus best AI systems, look at what's happened. We first remember the chess program that could beat Spassky or whoever it was. I forget now, the Russian grandmaster. But now best AI systems are consistently and significantly faster than human interface. And the revenue from this is also growing exponentially. If you look at it today, in millions of dollars, it's now $31 billion. And it can only grow. It will become trillions of dollars soon. You look at Tesla. Everybody thought Tesla was a battery car, an electric car, and I did too. But now everybody realizes Tesla is the same revolution as the Apple phone to or a Samsung phone to a Nokia phone. It is not a phone. It's a device that can give you everything that you want at your fingertips. And the same thing with Tesla. And look at the market cap. Tesla's market cap is the sum of the market cap of all other companies put together. And even 3 years ago, I was skeptical of this company, but it is not built just on software. They have started de novo from base zero, engineering based on very solid science. They just bought the world's largest pressure die casting machine to do in one shot the entire chassis of the vehicle. And they questioned everything. They make their own seats because they said the seats will have sensors, it will be a smart seat, and we don't want to leave it to the seat manufacturer. We would like to know exactly what's happening to the stresses and strains on the body from our own seats, which can measure. So they design everything, they make everything because this guy is so science driven. He wanted to go back to fundamental science. My Japanese CQM professor used to always tell me, Venu-san, please understand how molecule, atom, the nucleus, the electrons interact, and how do you create the phenomena. Unless you go to the deep analysis of the science, you can never build a globally competitive company. And here in front of our eyes, Tesla has used science. So Tesla is not just a battery car, it's not an electric car, it is a software revolution on wheels, and it's a physics revolution, a chemistry revolution. It is just unbelievable. So let me look at 4 key lessons that I'd like to share with you as you go on your journey ahead. I'm addressing the students specifically because I think you're entering one of the most exciting times in the history of mankind. I would like you to dream big and build your future. Look at China. Of the wealth created in the last, from now 2016 to the next 2050, China will be the biggest. Next will be India. And USA third. And after that, everybody is minuscule. So you're living in one of the world's largest and most competitive economies. When we were young, Professor C.K. Prahlad used to say, you must globalize. But fortunately for me, I was in the globally the largest two-wheeler market in the world. And you again are going to be in the largest population, young population countries in the world. And the opportunities for you are really infinite. India will have a PPP base, you can see that, from a 9 trillion to 44 trillion. So welcome to one of the most exciting times in our modern Indian history. But you must understand, all these unicorns and billionaires cause me some concern because everybody thinks I can just do a startup and I can become a billionaire. But you must understand that failure rates are very, very high. Look at it, 65% in the areas of information and digital technology, 65% fail. Whereas in the harder brick and mortar parts of it, the failure rates are lower, the payoff is also lower. So you can talk about Oyo, you can talk about, the retail, e-tail companies in India, and all of them, how they've sold out and made billions. But we must understand Ola and Uber and everybody else. But the number of people who will make money would be very, very small. So, but it is very important to understand that there's a huge opportunity out there. But the opportunity will not be uh, capitalized on by people who are arrogant, foolhardy, or rash. Speed is important, but speed without haste. And therefore, I would strongly urge all of you to look at the opportunity in front of you. The second thing I've learned is that we have to be adaptable. We cannot any longer have a long-term plan, as we used to call it. When we were growing up and I started life 40 years ago, they used to talk about Japanese companies having a 25-year plan, a vision for the future. I think a strategic intent is still very important. Your own institution could not have been created unless you had a visionary for a founder. Yes, But at the same time, we must understand the world is changing so fast. We have to have a long-term intent like a pole star, but very short steps of sprints so that you can change direction if you find the ground shifting under you. This adaptability, only those who are going to adapt are going to survive and not be dinosaurs in the future. So when you're building your career, move from horizon to horizon. Don't immediately say, I'll go to the moon. You need to have horizons. And when you go to that horizon, you might find that there are obstacles in the way. So it's not a straight line. The shortest path in career and building institutions is not never a straight line. Because as you go towards your goal, you'll find a valley, a river which cannot be crossed, or a desert, and you'll have to make a deviation. But when you make a deviation, you never lose track of your long-term vision and goal. So this adaptability is going to be very, very important for the future. But equally, I would like to say that you must have a strategic intent and a compelling view of the strategic intent for the future. If you don't have that strong belief, it might go wrong. But if you don't have that belief, you're not going to create the Teslas and Olas and Ubers and all the great names that today we think have done wonderfully well. Innovation is something fantastic. But what did Edison say? He said innovation is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So it's actually underlying all this is a lot of hard work. Uh, if you take Tesla, he slept in the factory. In every factory has this bedroom, a small cot in his office bedroom. Because he says, I want to be there. I want to wake up and go and see what's happening. They all work 20, 18 hours a day, 6 days, 7 days a week. It comes at a huge personal cost. So don't assume that inspiration is these people have built these unicorn companies, have hit a lottery. No, they have not. They had a bright idea, their determination, perspiration, tenacity, perseverance. And it is by those human qualities ultimately that you achieve this success. But when you do work and when you go out, let me give you one thing that I very deeply believe in. Please do what really motivates you. Next slide, please. You must be satisfied, more than satisfied, self-fulfilled. Doesn't matter if you're the greatest carpenter or the greatest artist or environmentalist or the builder of a billions of dollar organization. Just achieve your best and be fulfilled by what you have done. You cannot achieve greatness unless you love what you do. And I'll share this with you. I had a single-minded passion for quality. If you look, I've never maximized my profitability. You'll always find, because I kept investing in technology and quality, what drove me was quality. And I still believe if I just making money would never have motivated me to do what I did. It is just saying that if Japanese can do this quality, we can do it in India. And I want to build the best quality company in India. So you must love what you do. And next is improve every day. Every day, if you improve 1%, you will grow in 1 year 37.8 times of 1. But if you decline 1% a year, you will become 0.03 of what you were. So we think of breakthroughs, but many great breakthroughs are micron level steps that you don't really see the straight lines. You only see a perfect curve. But inside the curve, when you magnify to the electron microscope, you might find there are micron level steps inside. So every day you've got to change and improve yourself. You can't rest on your laurels in the new world. The world is so fast. All I can tell you is the next wave will be bigger than whatever wave we are riding today. And the wave I rode is going to be much smaller, and it is much smaller than the wave people are in the 20s are riding today. But when you do this, I think I'm running so fast that I actually am going to be running ahead of the time originally had granted me, so I can digress a little bit. I would like to talk about giving. To me, it's very, very important. Look at the inequalities in the world. The world is becoming greatly unequal, and that's why you're seeing violence. When we talked about the disruption in America that you're seeing today, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, there were articles in the Economist magazine and in the Financial Times. They looked at the American dream of the 50s, people like me when I was born. They all looked forward to a green plot of land with a nice lawn, two-car garage, if they're lucky, at least one car outside and one car in the garage. Every house had a play area, and we had two kids, they went to school, then they all lived a good life. As outsourcing took place, of first blue collar jobs to China largely, white collar jobs to India and other places, these people who had blue collar work and making in my time $40,000 a year. In 1977, an American blue collar worker in a unionized factory made $40,000 a year. An MBA made $25,000 a year. And we were shown something called the blue collar trap. You know, a lot of people said, why go to university? I'm getting a great job, making more money than my brother who went to university. Yes, to begin with, it's true, but later it changes. But these jobs disappeared. So America has got very low paid white collar and blue collar jobs and very rich bankers and IT, the Googles and Amazons and everybody else in the world. And low collar jobs, hamburger flipping and janitorial services. Everything else has gone to China. Everything in Target is China. Everything you could buy on Amazon is from China. Everything you buy in Walmart is from China. So what has happened is that the poor are very, very poor. And the rich are very, very rich, and the middle class has shrunk. And the article said that this is what is causing a huge discontent in America. And therefore, America is going to have a serious disruption and, and damage to the social fabric. And you've seen that. What we witnessed in the last few weeks is something none of us would have imagined would take place in the world's richest country. But it did take place. Next, you go to parts of Africa or South America, you see how wide the disparity is. And you know how violent the societies are. So if we just get ahead and leave everybody behind, the others are going to pull you back and destroy you. So this is one major lesson that I learned thanks to one person in my family whom I would like to quote. Was a Dr. Soundaram Ramchandran. She was a Gandhian. She was directly a disciple of Gandhi, not just a practitioner of a theoretical Gandhian. She was with him in the ashram, and she was widowed very early in life because her husband was working on the plague in Tamil Nadu and cut himself by accident. And my grandfather encouraged her to go to Wellington College in Delhi, become a doctor. And she gave her entire patrimony to setting up the Gandhigram Rural Institute, which became a rural university later. That you have to have compassion, you have to share. We cannot wait for trickle-down effect of economics. We cannot wait for a capitalist economy where we will get rich and then what we spend will slowly give others a good life. Because those societies will be torn apart. So while I talk to you about the huge opportunities that you have to make billions of dollars, not billions of rupees, I came from a time where you waited 8 years to get a scooter, where you waited years to get a telephone, where there 0.001% were rich, 2% were middle class, and 98% were poor after independence. From that, we have become a far more wealthy society, but yet 300 million or 400 million, depending on the count, of Indians live in dire poverty, starting with northeast of Andhra, Orissa, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, going up to the northeast. And if you lay the uh, where you have the insurgency programs, people war group, that red crescent also is the crescent where these 300, 400 million people live. So if you want to live a good life and not see what happened in US, what happened in South Africa after independence and happens in Congo and all over Africa, then we have to give back and make sure that we build an equitable society and build a strong social fabric, because that is in our own self-interest. You can call it enlightened self-interest, but it is at the end of the day your own self-interest. So this has been one of my great things. Actually, today I spent more of my time on this. We are working in about 5,000 villages, but really integrated manner, about 2,500 villages. I hope I will create an institution which will work in 10,000 villages after my lifetime. But this is today what I believe that the young people of India owe to their country. You look at what our professors were paid, look at the amount of sacrifices our parents did. They all did that for us to be prosperous. And we should never forget our parents first, our teachers next, and broadly the Indian community, the society from which we have taken everything and which has made us what we are today. So I would like you to look at how do you please look after your parents. I think that's one great thing about India. People do actually do it. There is an Indian ethos, and it doesn't matter which religion or caste or community in India you belong to, there is an Indian ethos of caring and sharing. And start small. You don't have to immediately set up a Gates Foundation or my friend Azim Premji Foundation or a Tata Charitable Trust, but everybody can contribute in a small way. The saying in Tamil, Siru Tuli Peru Vellam, small drops make a mighty ocean or a big flood. So all of you must have this at the back of your mind. It can be small amounts of money, more importantly, time that you can give to really make India a better place, not only a prosperous place, a healthy place, but a better place for your next generation to grow up in. The second, I'd like to leave you with is sustainability. Look at the global climate change. Last week in Shankranti time, we had the worst flood in Tamil Nadu. I have not seen rivers flow like that in 50 years, and usually it happened during the monsoon. This year in Shankranti, in the southern districts of Tamil Nadu, all the standing crops are destroyed. And now they say that's what's going to happen, is the southern part of India is going to be wetter, but also is going to be later. And Turkey has gone dry. There's no water. Last year's Cape Town almost went dry. Few years ago, Chennai went dry. There is a huge climate change impact on water, on crops, on species. How many of you, I don't know the fact that 70% of species have died in the last 50 years? And I'll give you 3 examples. I still have 5 more minutes, so I will take that time. There's a man in Frankfurt who put up blue paper in the park every summer and counted the number of insects he caught. And he was shocked to find that most of them had disappeared by 2020. Now, can be seen in many ways. When I was young, 20 years old, If you drove at night, you had to stop and clean your windshield regularly because of the moths and flies and insects that had spattered themselves on your windshield. Today, it doesn't happen. You can drive at night, there's nothing there. There are no insects. I used to have fireflies in my home in Chennai. There were large spiders, ants. I used to see, if I saw 100 species of small creatures, today I probably only see 10 or 20 in Chennai. Also partly due to urban desertification. But what does that do to the food chain? So all these big animals finally depend on these small things that build up to finally for a whale to live or a tiger to live or a human being to live. So we are creating right now a world which is not sustainable and on which we cannot live. We have what Gandhi said, the world has enough for a man's need, but not for enough for his greed. And I don't want to use the word greed as so strong. I'm not a Gandhi, but we consume more than we need to. And that consumption has created the plastic that occupied the seas, that's getting into the food chain. All of us today have a lot of nanoplastic material in us because it's coming in the water, it's coming in the vegetables, coming in the meat and eggs that we eat. So while you're creating this exciting time to make money and prosperity, there may be no world left for us to live in if we do not do something about the environment. Today, this is one of the most important aspects for any company, any industry, any business, that how sustainable are we? And I'm not defending my industry, the auto industry. We have provided huge opportunities for people to move, but at a very heavy price in terms of carbon in the air, pollutants in the air, and heat, thermal pollution. But how many of you know that the cruise ship industry, going to Norway by cruise, go to Arctic by cruise, the cruise industry in Europe puts out 10 times as much pollution as the car industry. Then you go to planes, and the ships use the worst quality fuel, highest sulfur, highest nitrous oxides come out of it. So when we look at it, our cars and two-wheelers have to go electric, but electricity that is produced in a green manner, not by burning coal. Otherwise, we're really not solving the problem. And it will happen. I have no doubts it will happen. I have no doubts that in future there'll be hydrogen trucks which will go across the world. Maybe battery cars, but hydrogen trucks, because you can't fit so many batteries into a truck. But please, this is something very close to my heart, because I am leaving behind, and my generation is leaving behind, a world which is much poorer and less sustainable than what we inherited. So these are the 2 points I'd like to leave back with you. Please put back into society and please protect this world. That's all the world we have. I don't think we're really going to be able to find spaceships to take us to new Earths where we can survive. So I'd like to leave you with the Sustainable Development Goals. And I don't want to read everything in it. Dignity to end poverty, prosperity, justice, a partnership, protect our ecosystems, and ensure healthy lives, knowledge, and inclusion for everybody, men, women, children of all castes, all creeds, all races. Thank you once again, Dr. Rangarajan. I'm really very honored and very humbled by your request to request me to address this audience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent lecture. Uh, Maybe we'll have a few minutes for questions. How do you go about reducing consumption while maintaining economic growth, especially for developing countries like India?
Sir, I think that is a very big conundrum, and it's a big problem because the poor people in India and Africa and South America or parts of Southeast Asia have the same rights to enjoy things that the rich people and rich countries enjoyed before. But I think the great contradiction that we can break, how can I produce a car which has much more power but consumes much less fuel? So we have to break that conundrum and find a way of that breaking that compromise in order to give people what they need. For example, solar power can give you unlimited power without a pollution. And in fact, at one point, I read a book which said power is going to be free. Just like today, data is almost free. So we will have to find a way of recycling, reusing as much as we think of reduction.
Sir, there is a question relating to what should companies do to become leaders, to bring in technological changes. How does company become a leader in bringing in technological change?
I think the first point I had is never be satisfied. Should not become a malcontent. That kind of dissatisfaction only destroys you. But you should never be satisfied with the current equilibrium. So once you've made a breakthrough, you can rest on your laurels for some nanoseconds, but then you have to get dissatisfied with that new equilibrium you have created and move on to the next. This constant urge to do better, 1% a day better, is the only way that organizations and leaders will create continuously companies that continuously do breakthroughs.
What is your advice to the graduating students to adopt to the exponential changes in technology in their life?
That is a difficult question, sir, for me to answer. But all I can say is that that urge has to come from within you. Everybody won't have it, and everybody need not have it. There are followers in the world, and there are leaders in the world. But you have to do your best. I think that is as important and more important for your long-term happiness and satisfaction. So while breakthroughs will be done by some people, everybody can't run the marathon. Everybody can't run a mile in 4 minutes. So we are all endowed differently, but we must achieve the maximum potential that God has given us.
Any other question? Any other question? How do you go? Consumption. What could be the role of educational institutions in building sustainable economic system in future?
So education institutions are the most important institutions next to the family. And these institutions should go beyond giving you a skill and becoming a vocational training school. And I'm deliberately using that word, whether IIT or whether you are ICFAI, of giving you tools to make money. It must give you a vision, a value system that is going to create a new world. Not just the trade skills to make money. I become better manager, better economist, better engineer, better doctor, whatever you are, but in a way that you create a better world. And that is the inculcation of values that in education institutions must provide.
Why our education system is yet based on rote learning rather than creativity?
Sir, I think you have to answer that question, not me.
And of course, we are trying to make it creative, design thinking. Every class.
Unfortunately, we started with a British education system which was based on rote learning, and we didn't break away to creative learning, as you see in many parts in America, definitely, and now in many parts of Europe also, who are trying to change. But that's very essential to create the new brave world for India. Rote learning cannot create that new brave world.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, sir, for your excellent responses and wonderful lecture, one of the best lectures I have heard in the last decade. I now request Professor Rangarajan to give the presidential remarks. Professor Rangarajan.
Is it all right?
Yes, sir. We are ready.
Dr. Venu Srinivasan, Mrs. Sobarani Yasaswi, Mr. Shankara, Dr. Mahendra Reddy, and distinguished participants. I'm indeed very happy to be here with you all, of course, virtually, on the occasion of the 11th Foundation Day lecture. On this day, we need to remember the contribution made by the founder of this institution. It is a foresight and wisdom of Mr. Yasasvi, which led to the creation a host of integrated institutions devoted to higher education. We need to thank him for the benefits that he has given. The best way we can repay the gratitude is by trying to maintain the high quality of the educations which has helped to found. We are extremely grateful to Dr. Venu Srinivasan for accepting our invitation to be here to deliver the 11th Foundation Day lecture. He delivered a highly insightful lecture, not only on the broad sweep of the technological revolution that the world has witnessed, particularly in the last 4 centuries or 3 centuries, but also he ended up his lecture with some sound and sage advice to the students and others on how to deal with the world in which we are now living, and how do we make the world that we are living better than what it is now. Technology certainly has been a major driving force of economic growth. Of course, if you don't believe in economic growth, that's a different matter. But economic growth, in terms of augmenting the availability of goods and services, has been one of the major objectives of society itself. And economists have estimated that over the 3 centuries, more than half of the growth is attributable to technological growth. The technological growth can also arise out of 2 things: a steady improvement in the developments, technological developments, and then breakthrough inventions. When breakthrough inventions happen, then the society gets fundamentally altered. Venu Srinivasan talked to us today about the various industrial revolutions which followed one after the other with a different base, and how and where we stand in terms of the latest developments in the field of technology. The breakthrough inventions do not happen in a continuous way. They come separated by several spaces of time. But as Mr. Srinivasan pointed out, that the time it takes for the new revolution to happen has been getting shorter and shorter. And that is which puts the world in a difficult situation. But there is a big difference between the kind of technological changes that had happened, let us say 50 years, before 50 years, and the technological changes that are happening in the last 50 years. As he mentioned, the first revolution was based on steam, the second revolution was based on electricity, and now we are witnessing a revolution which is based on electronics and more recently artificial intelligence. The impact of this is going to be much more different from the impact of the previous revolutions. I will come back to it in a few minutes because it has some relevance to the issue that Venu raised regarding our approach to life in the years to come. But basically, the revolution that we are witnessing today is putting us in a more difficult situation than the revolutions that preceded us. In a sense, digitization and digitalization are not a culmination, because there is no end to this, are an important stage in the development that we saw about 3 or 4 decades ago, that is the computer revolution. The revolution, the impact of which we are feeling, is a combination of the computer revolution and the revolution in communications technology. Computers used to be something which is so big. I recall my days as a graduate student in the University of Pennsylvania, where I used to see the first computer machine in the Moore School of Engineering in the basement. But the computers have shrunk in size, but have exploded in potential. They have moved out of the basement, the desolate basement, to the tables of the executives. Now, this kind of a revolution is further being taken into a new field. I was first wondering when I saw the title, Digitalization. I was wondering what is the difference between digitization and digitalization. Then I found out digitization is a simple thing, transforming any information in physical documents into digital form. But whereas digitalization is using or leveraging digitization to achieve certain objectives. And it is that which is happening now, digitalization. Whether it is in the field, as he mentioned, as Srinivasan mentioned, whether it is health or manufacturing or travel or anything. Think of any field, and it is there what we see that happening. And there are obviously great advantages in it. The advantages are very clear. The time taken is less. You have much greater choice, and so on and so forth. So there are any number of things that one can look at because of the digitalization, reduce costs, and so many things. But at the same time, there are also some disadvantages. People are wondering about the monopoly power. In fact, many of the IT companies, even the most leading of them, is facing from time to time issues relating to monopoly power. And there are also people talk about addiction to technology. We say we save time because of e-commerce. But then they say that we spend so much time in looking at the looking at the mobile nowadays, that we are spending more time rather than what we should really be doing. So there are many other problems, bypassing the labor laws and so on and so forth. But what I really wanted to say is that we have reached a stage where digitization or digitalization has become almost inevitable. That is a logical consequence of the developments that have been happening in the last 3 decades, and more particularly in the last decade. The induction of artificial intelligence has also fundamentally altered the character of the revolution, because digitalizing artificial intelligence is replacing not what the human labor was doing, but what the human mind has been doing. That's a different thing. Because in the previous times, people used to say that industrial revolution does not result in unemployment, because the growth takes care of the people who have been thrown out of employment. But one is not very sure today that as a consequence of the artificial intelligence and digitalization, whether we will be able to take care of the people who were thrown out of job. Jeffrey Sachs, one of the important people who wrote the Millennium Goals, is wondering now whether digitization and digitalization can help the developing economies, can help the poorer economies to be able to get out of the poverty, but while facing this particular problem. Of course, poorer economies or developing economies, let me use the better term, are not all of the same type. India is a developing economy, but we are certainly most forward as far as digitization and digitalization is concerned. And therefore, we might be able to not cope up, but at least be able to go with the current. That is possible. But there are poorer countries in Africa which may not be able to do it. In fact, the model of economic growth for the poorer countries has been the South Korean model. Start with exporting consumer goods which are labor intensive, then move on to the higher stages. But even that choice is no longer available because of the digitization and the digitalization. We probably will have to enable the poorer countries to jump several steps and be able to be mastering the art of digitization and digitalization. So this is a real problem which the poorer countries are going to face. And this is not something that we can avoid, because as I mentioned earlier, the process of substituting the mind essentially means that not so many people are not required for producing the amount of output that we need. And if you don't need those people, but what do you do with them? So production will increase, productivity will increase, but we may not need the same number of people. What will be the choice there? People in Europe are today now talking about a 4-day week instead of a 5-day week, because then only they will be able to productively employ other people. But at the same time, what will become more necessary are the social safety nets in the society. Mr. Srinivasan talked about the need for giving. The need for giving is there not only on the part of the individual, the need for giving is also there on the part of the state. And the social safety net will have to be built up if the process of digitization and digitalization takes on the greater speed. I think that is something that people will have to somehow find out and find the answer. But can we avoid digitization and digitalization? That also is not possible. As somebody said, that the revolution, computer revolution, and the artificial intelligence revolution cannot be wished away. They are part of us, and we need to cope with it and find an answer. They are so ubiquitous. As somebody said, that suggested, talked about an anecdote. He said, there was some doubt among the minds of the people whether God is a he or she. Then they said, how to find out the answer? So they said, let us feed the computers with the scripture and ask the question whether God is a he or she. The computer digested all the information and came up with the answer. And the answer is, God is neither he nor she, but it. And that is the way in which it has gone. It has become so ubiquitous in our system. And therefore, the problem of having to deal with it is going to be very important for us. I think there are two levels at which it has to be done. One is what we talked about at the beginning. That is a technological revolution, and we have to be part of it, and we need to be conscious of quality. We need to be able to deal with it. Therefore, that is there very much. But at the same time, we have also to deal with how to look at the social consequences of that revolution. And how we deal with the social consequences is something that we really need to think about. I will also agree with him that the whole issue of sustainable development is going to be a very critical one as we go along. Whether the new revolution will be less polluting or whether it will be more polluting is something about which we will have to see later on. Therefore, the planet that we are living in today is a plundered planet. Actually, sustainable development's definition itself is that we leave to the following generation nothing less than what we have inherited from the previous generation. But of course, this doesn't mean you leave exactly the same thing that you inherited. But you are supposed to leave to the next generation something equivalent to what you have inherited. I think there is some problem there of definition, not problem, but there are some intricate questions that arise there, but I will leave it there. The point really is that the planet that we are living on, if it is to continue, as he said, that there is no other planet to which we can all migrate, and therefore this is important. And if that is so, that we should be in a position to create a society, adopt a technology of production which does not do harm to the nature and to the society. How we'll find the answer to that is going to be another challenge. One challenge is at the technological level. Another challenge is both at technology and at the societal level. I think I will stop here. I must express my gratefulness to Venu Srinivasan for talking about something that is of critical importance, and also to draw some lessons which are not necessarily related to technology. What he talked about equity, what he talked about giving, are issues that arise in a world in which we are now living. Efficiency is important, but at the same time, equity is important. In my view, equity and efficiency should not be posed as opposing considerations. They must be viewed together to produce an acceptable pattern of development. And therein lies wisdom. And that is the world towards which we must lead. I must thank once again Venu Srinivasan for a highly insightful lecture, for provoking us to think on some new lines, to live in this world more comfortably, more affordably, and more in tune with nature. Thank you very much, Venu, for coming here and giving us a wonderful lecture.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent concluding remarks as to how to look at the social consequences of technological revolutions, and also focusing on the importance of sustainable development, and ultimately on the importance of giving. Thank you, sir, very much for your remarks. Now I request Madam Registrar, Madam Vijay Lakshmi, to propose a vote of thanks. Madam Vijay Lakshmi. Well, Madam.
Madam, your voice is not clear, madam.
We have to mute or something?
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Venu Srinivasan for an excellent lecture. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation in spite of your extremely tight schedule, and for your presentation, which covered so many aspects. It is beneficial to the students, to the faculty, and the support staff. Sir, Professor Rangarajan, we are grateful to you for presiding over this lecture and for your extremely valuable concluding remarks. We are going to distribute the video to some of those who could not make it, so that they could watch the video at their convenience. I'd like to thank each and every one of you, Madam Shobha Rani SSV, Mr. V.R. Shankara, distinguished members of the board, distinguished faculty, directors, vice chancellors, and chancellors, and all of you. Thank you very much. This concludes the 11th Foundation Day lecture. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. 4:15, exactly.